Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video with Vandalism. As you guys know, we're doing this every Thursday. My name's Shanahan, and we're just doing quick little production tips, sound design, and just touching base on general techniques as far as production goes. Before I start, as I always say, head on over to our Vandalism website when you guys get a chance. We have way more in-depth videos, 20 to 25 minute videos on mixing, mastering, and all types of production techniques that really can help you out and be beneficial. So make sure you check that out. But for today, we want to touch base on getting a similar vibe to Griffin and Illenium's Feel Good track. It's not going to be exact because they have guitars going on top, a lot's going on. There's way more in-depth stuff going on in the track, but we really wanted to touch base on getting similar chord sound design wise. We can really layer up all day, but I thought it'd be nice to just touch base on really nice, thick, similar chords sound-wise for what he usually uses in his tracks. And I do think the most important part for Illenium's vibe is the sidechain and how you use compression to kind of duck the kick, duck everything from the kick. So that's really the main focus, but we're just going to get a similar vibe. This is what we're going to come up with today. So, of course, it's not going to sound exactly like him. Like I said, we're not trying to get the exact sound. We're getting similar sounding chords to what he uses. So let's open up Silent and start from scratch on one of the first layers that I want to start designing. So if you just start with Silent, initialize your preset, I'm going to start building basically part A and B, 4 oscillators to really thicken it up a little bit. You want to keep the chords nice and basic, but they're obviously the main drive part of his drop, so we want to make sure that these do have a little bit of punch. All right, so let's start. Let's widen this up, the voices. We can put both of those to 8. I want both sides to be a saw. That's very basic. We don't really need any of the envelopes. I'm not going to route any of the LFO. I'm really going to keep it basic with the saw, but again, it's going to be the main focus. So let's low pass this, give it a little drive on part A. We can leave the cutoff where it's at. I just want to open up this a little bit here. And now we can kind of give this a little detune. That's going to give us a little bit of width to the saws and start widening it out a little bit. And we can do the oscillator AA, A2 also. And I'm going to want A, what we're working on now, to be the loudest. Mix wise, I want this to be the louder layer, so you can work with your mixer over here bringing stuff down. So right away we have a nice basic saw, but it's starting to take shape. Let's hop over to part B though, and this is going to be the lower mixed sound wise, the lower mixed oscillators. So we can start to bring this up a little bit. I want to have a little bit of release so that when it comes off this note, the notes by the snare drums or the claps, it's going to hang over just a touch. It's just going to kind of be very, very subtle. But I want to put a noise oscillator on this one, so we get a little bit of crunch there in the high end. And we really want to mix that a little bit lower. You can see how it's there. If you take this off, it's a pretty big difference. It's pretty significant to have noise oscillators in your saws, because you're getting, instead of hiking up your Q2 as far as the 15K range and trying to really push that, it's almost better to put a noise oscillator sometimes to kind of give that presence for you. I find it a little more effective. So that sounded good. That would be kind of like my noise, noise oscillator, noise chords, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of the noise part. But I want to add on just a little bit of phaser here to give it a little bit more taste. If you go here, and you can, this is really, really subtle. We don't need to go far with this. can hear it taking shape. It's very, very subtle. It's a similar idea that, you know, in Inspire, that synth, a lot of people use that phasing area to really get like the synth having that talk and get that kind of movement to the synth. So we can put a little bit of reverb, nothing crazy. As you guys know, if you see my last videos, I definitely love using Valhalla, but to speed things up, you know, we can use inbox reverb. You know, it's really subtle on the pre-delay, kind of coming out right after. But that's one of our main patches. Let's go on to the next one, which would be this one down here. So this has a little bit more kind of a ripping presence in the mix. It's got a little bit more body to it. So let's start building this one also. So I'm going to start with the saws. I'm actually going to keep voice A1 a little bit lower. We can keep that on one voice. Let's go over to A2 and we'll widen that a little bit. Let's go 3 or 4 on the voices and we can get a little bit more width here with the detune. And you can again bring up the release a little bit, really, really subtle. And you don't have to go far. You can tell with the detuning that it gets this weird kind of a funky sound. That's totally okay. You don't want to go too high with that for these saws. So that's sounding nicer. You know, you can widen that up with a, you know, an S1 from Waves. We could do some mid-side action on that with the Pro Q. There's many different things we can do with that. But let's hop over to B. Part A is really simple, but let's hop over to B now and throw on a square oscillator here, or pulse, and we can turn that up to about 4 or 5. And I want that to be a little lower. I don't need that to be the main focus. And let's run over here. We could do a 7 or 8 over here on B1. And I do want that to be a saw. And we're going to widen that also, or detune. So that's sounding pretty wide. I'm liking that style sound. We could just quickly EQ a couple things here. You know, nothing crazy. Give it a little more bass frequencies. I really want those 200 hertz to kind of stick out in this one. That's kind of where you get the warmth in your chords. So I'm chopping basically to that. So that's sounding good. Let's just put a little bit of the inbox compression on there. It's kind of tucking it back just a little more. But we have 2 solid, simple saws, but really solid out of the box sounding saws out of Sylenth. You know, just started from scratch. Really, really cool sounding if you put them both together. You can tell how one sounds weaker than it should when you kind of mute its other layer out. That's a good thing. You want your layers to actually be doing something, so that's always positive. To run real quick over to the compression before we sign off, there's 2 different ways that I like to achieve the Illenium style ducking. You can use LFO tool and whatever you want for a curve plugin, but you also can use the compressor through Logic or whatever you want. And what I'm doing is routing the kick pattern we have here. I'm routing it in as a ghost kick, so it's just muted, in other words. So every time that kick hits, everything that's routed to this compressor is going to duck out, and you'll be able to see that on the graph. So his compression is just a super big part of his style drops. We all know him for that stuff. Same thing with Griffin. It's got a similar vibe. But also with what I'm doing is combining it with a half rate curve. This curve here we're using with the LFO tool. You'll notice if I shut off the LFO, every time there's a break in here, the chords are going to be wide open. You're going to hear them. But what I'm doing is when the kick hits, I'm compressing, but also every chord or half section of the track is also technically compressing due to the LFO tool. So you'll see the difference when I turn it off. So it's really apparent right here in measure 46. If I have it on, it's still going to duck without the kick at a half rate curve. We're getting that a little more of an Illenium vibe due to combining both of these compression techniques. But that's really it for today. Give it a shot. I know they're simple saws, and yes, it does not sound exactly like him. Again, in the beginning of the video, it's getting a similar chord vibe and being able to utilize these chords to achieve that similar sound. So have fun with it. Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll see you guys next week.